What if I told you that the only person who can truly hurt you is you? Think about it. All the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the cold silences, the harsh words, they sting, yes. But what if the pain you feel isn't really about them? What if it's a mirror reflecting something unresolved within you? You spent your life trying to be strong, to keep it together, to smile when you're crumbling. Maybe you've mastered the art of pretending, always the one who seems okay, who listens, who shows up, who never breaks. But behind that calm exterior, there's a silent war, a deep, aching question you rarely admit to anyone. Why does everything hurt so much, even when nothing's wrong? You've tried to ignore it, haven't you? You stay busy, distracted, useful. You tell yourself that if you just achieve enough, love enough, endure enough, the pain will disappear. But it doesn't. It follows you. And every time someone touches that invisible bruise, through a look, a word, or absence, it flares up like a wound you forgot existed. Carl Jung, one of the greatest depth psychologists of the 20th century, once said, "We are not what happens to us. We are what we choose to become." And in that one sentence lies the key to everything. Because maybe, just maybe, the path to becoming unshakable isn't about building thicker armor, but about finally facing what's underneath it. So let me ask you again, gently this time, what if the real healing doesn't come from protecting yourself, but from meeting the pain you've spent your whole life avoiding? Most people believe they suffer because of what others do. A careless word, a betrayal, a silence when you needed love. But Carl Jung pointed out a deeper, far more uncomfortable truth. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think about that. The things that hurt you the most, aren't they the ones that touch something already raw inside you? It's not the comment itself that destroys you. It's the wound it presses on. The pain isn't born in the moment. It's resurrected. Imagine a woman who crumbles under mild criticism from her partner. He says, "I just think you could have handled that better." And suddenly she's not just hearing his voice. She's hearing every voice from her past that made her feel not good enough. Her father, who withheld love. Her first boyfriend left without explanation. That high school teacher who laughed when she spoke up. She's no longer reacting to now. She's reacting to then. This is the unconscious at work. A storage room of forgotten stories, silent traumas, and broken beliefs. Still active, still powerful, still shaping every emotion and decision. Most people never go down there. It's easier to blame the surface, the partner, the friend, the world. But Jung tells us that the real battle isn't external. It's in the psyche. And as long as we refuse to enter that battlefield, we'll keep losing fights we don't understand. Pain is a message, not an enemy. It tells you this part of you has not healed. That's why the same words can leave one person indifferent and destroy another. It's not about what was said, it's about what it awakened. We don't want to admit this because it shifts responsibility. It means we're not just passive victims of what happens to us. We're participants in our own pain. Not because we deserve it, but because we haven't resolved it. That's what Jung meant when he said the unconscious drives your life until you make it conscious. The patterns you don't examine become your destiny. The triggers you ignore become your identity. Let's take another example. A man who feels deep anger when his partner needs space. She says, "I just need a little time to think," and he spirals. Suddenly, he's angry, suspicious, and insecure. Not because of what she said, but because those words echo abandonment. The mother who left, a childhood filled with inconsistency. A belief formed long ago. People always leave me. That belief still lives inside him, and every relationship becomes a stage where that old script plays out until he rewrites it. This is the real meaning of inner work. It's not about controlling your emotions. It's about understanding them, listening to them, following them back to their source. Because when you see where the wound is, you can stop bleeding from everything that touches it. And here's the paradox. The more we try to protect ourselves from being hurt, the more we suffer. We build walls, wear masks, and develop coping mechanisms, all in the name of safety. But those defenses don't stop the pain. They bury it. And what's buried doesn't disappear. It festers. It reemerges in anxiety, in sabotage, in overreactions that leave you wondering, why did I respond like that? Jung invites us to stop wondering, to stop running, to look directly into the shadow and ask, where did this come from? Because once you see it, truly see it, it loses its power to control you. So the next time something hurts you, pause. Don't just ask, why did they say that? Ask, why did it hurt so much? And then listen, not to them, to you. You're not fragile. You're not broken. But you are being driven, subtly, powerfully, by something you may not even be aware of. And that something is what Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not some sinister force lurking in the dark corners of your mind, waiting to sabotage you. It's far more human than that. It's the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide, suppress, and deny. The pieces of your psyche you were told were too much, not enough, unacceptable. Your anger, your envy, your shame, your fear, your raw sadness, they didn't vanish. You buried them. And in that burial, they gained power. Jung wrote, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The less you see it, the more it controls you. The process starts innocently enough, with repression. Maybe you were taught as a child that good kids don't get angry, or that crying is a weakness, or that needing love is needy, and neediness is shameful. So you learn to silence those parts. You put on a mask, a persona, to survive. But that mask eventually becomes your identity. And everything else gets pushed into the dark. Out of sight, out of awareness, but never out of influence. From there, projection takes over. What you cannot accept in yourself, you begin to see in others. You resent your friend for being selfish, but secretly, you're angry that you never allow yourself to say no. You judge others for being loud, needy, insecure, but those are the parts of you still desperate to be acknowledged. Your unconscious says, this is too painful to own, so I'll see it everywhere else. The world becomes your mirror, and every trigger a reflection of what's unresolved. And then comes the sabotage, self-sabotage, the quiet, creeping destruction of your own goals, your own peace, your own relationships. You overthink until you're paralyzed. You lash out at people who love you. You chase dreams, then abandon them just before they come true. Why? Because something inside you still doesn't believe you deserve more. Because a part of you, forgotten, wounded part, still thinks that pain is safer than possibility. And you might ask, why do I keep doing this? The answer is, you're not. Not consciously, your shadow is. It's the voice you stopped listening to. It's the pain you never grieved. It's the child inside you who still thinks love has to be earned by becoming someone else. But here's the thing. You're not weak because you have a shadow. You're human. Every person walking this earth has one. The question isn't whether it exists. The question is whether you're willing to see it. Most aren't. They stay on the surface, addicted to appearances. They perform strength instead of embodying it. They say I'm fine while silently drowning. They keep the mask glued on, hoping no one will notice the cracks. But the shadow always leaks through. In the arguments that escalate too fast, the breakdowns that seem to come out of nowhere, the numbing habits we can't quite quit. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's not a metaphor, it's a diagnosis. If you don't face your shadow, it becomes your life script. You'll live the same stories, date the same people, make the same mistakes, until you finally stop and ask, what in me is attracting this? What in me still believes this is all I deserve? And that's not an easy question, because it asks you to revisit old pain, to stop blaming the world and start listening inward, to sit with the very emotions you've been taught to avoid. But it's the only way out. As long as the shadow remains in the dark, it rules you. But once it's seen, truly seen, its power begins to fade. You don't have to fight it. You just have to meet it, with curiosity, with honesty, with compassion. Because your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your lost self, waiting to come home. We've been sold a lie. A polished, socially accepted, culturally reinforced illusion that if you can just control your life enough, everything will be okay. Control your emotions, control your schedule, control your image, control what you say, how you feel, and how others perceive you. And above all, never let them see you unravel. That's the silent gospel of Western culture, especially in America, where emotional suppression often disguises itself as strength. But here's the truth: control isn't strength. Control is fear in disguise. Carl Jung wrote, "We are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become." It's a powerful reminder that real transformation doesn't come from gripping tighter. It comes from going deeper. It comes not from avoidance, but from awareness. Not from domination, but from integration. And yet, look around. We are a society of overfunctioners. Always busy, always productive, always fine. We wear exhaustion like a status symbol, burn ourselves out to feel valuable, numb ourselves with noise so we don't have to hear the ache underneath it all. The result? A nation of high achievers with no inner peace, chronic anxiety, emotional numbness, burnout that doesn't go away with a vacation. People who've mastered the art of appearing put together while silently falling apart. This is the cost of control. You can manage your calendar down to the minute, perfect your Instagram captions, hit every deadline, and still feel like a stranger in your own life. Why? Because you're only living the half of you that's been deemed acceptable. The rest, the messy, the angry, the grieving, the afraid, has been shoved into a psychological basement and locked away. That locked away self is what Jung called the shadow, and until you bring it into the light, no amount of control will give you peace. That's where the concept of individuation comes in. Jung's term for the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not polished, whole. Individuation is not self-help. It's not performance. It's not about becoming someone you're not. It's about reclaiming who you already are beneath the roles, expectations, and survival strategies. It's the slow, honest, often uncomfortable process of integrating the parts of you you've rejected and owning them. That anger you suppress, it might be the boundary you never learned to set. That sadness you push away. It could be the grief you never gave space to breathe. That fear you mask with productivity. It may be the child in you still waiting to feel safe. We call these emotions weakness, but they're not. They're signals, messages from within. And when you finally listen, you realize they're not working against you. They've been working for you all along, asking for your attention, your care, your truth. But society doesn't teach us to listen. It teaches us to hustle, to perform, to get over it. And so we become disconnected, successful on the outside, numb on the inside. Jung knew the price of this split. He said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And that's the inconvenient truth. Integration requires discomfort. It requires feeling what you've avoided, naming what you've denied, sitting with the chaos until it becomes clarity. But once you do, everything changes. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop overfunctioning. You start aligning. You stop needing control. You start trusting your own center. Because real strength isn't about control. It's about containment. It's about becoming the kind of person who can hold the full range of their inner experience without crumbling. And that's what individuation gives you. Not a shield from life, but the unshakable clarity to meet it as you are, with all of who you are. Nothing can break you once you've embraced what's broken inside you. That sentence might feel uncomfortable at first, maybe even impossible, because everything you've been taught has told you the opposite. That to protect yourself from being hurt, you need to build barriers. Be tougher, get stronger, show no weakness. But what if that's the very thing keeping you stuck in pain? Carl Jung believed that the true path to emotional freedom isn't about shielding yourself from life. It's about facing it entirely, especially the parts that live within you. He didn't ask us to become harder. He invited us to become whole. You see, most people mistake control for strength. They think that if they can just manage every detail, predict every outcome, and avoid every trigger, they'll be safe. But the truth is, the more you try to control the outside world, the more power you give it over you. You become a slave to external circumstances, to approval, rejection, attention, abandonment. You're constantly reacting, constantly on edge, constantly trying to anticipate the next emotional blow. And yet it keeps coming. Why? Because the pain you're trying to avoid already lives inside you. And that's the real battlefield. Not out there, but within. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is not just theory. It's lived reality. Until you see the wound, you will keep bleeding from every touch. Every harsh word will feel like a dagger. Every silence will feel like abandonment. Every rejection will feel like confirmation that you're not enough. But once you turn toward that wound, not to fix it, but to embrace it, everything begins to change. This is what integration means. It means you no longer fight parts of yourself. You no longer exile the parts that are messy, scared, angry, or vulnerable. You bring them home. You say, you belong too. And in that moment, something powerful happens. Those parts stop screaming. They stop lashing out. They stop hijacking your reactions. Because now they've been seen. They've been loved. And when you've integrated what's broken, no one on the outside can use it against you. Imagine this. Someone criticizes you. They say something that just a few years ago would have shattered your sense of worth. But now, you hear it, you feel it, but you don't become it. You don't spiral. You don't collapse. You breathe, you process, and then you choose. That's the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is unconscious. It's automatic. It's your shadow flaring up. The response is conscious. It's rooted. It's clarity in motion. This clarity, conscious clarity, as Jung would frame it, is stronger than any emotional armor you could ever wear, because it doesn't depend on circumstance. It's not reactive. It's not defensive. It's internal strength born from deep self-knowledge. You're no longer afraid of being triggered because you understand your triggers. You're no longer afraid of pain because you no longer see it as a threat, but as a messenger. You're no longer afraid of rejection because you've already accepted the parts of yourself others might walk away from. That's what makes you untouchable. Not because you don't feel, but because you don't identify with the feeling. Not because you avoid pain, but because you honor it when it comes. And here's what they don't tell you. The moment you stop resisting the pain is the moment it loses its power over you. Jung also said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. That is the essence of healing, the essence of awakening, the essence of true strength. When you live from this space of integration, you no longer seek protection. You embody presence. You no longer chase validation. You trust your own worth. You no longer live on the emotional roller coaster of external approval because you've already approved of yourself. This doesn't mean you'll never hurt again, but the hurt won't undo you. It won't define you. It won't direct your life. Instead, you'll meet it with open eyes and an open heart and say, I know you, and I'm not afraid anymore. That's freedom. That's power. That's peace. And no one can give it to you, because no one can take it from you. Let's be honest, the world taught you to toughen up, to build walls, to hide your wounds beneath a smile, to keep moving even when your soul begged you to pause. You were told that strength meant being unaffected, untouched, unshaken. But that kind of strength doesn't liberate you, it cages you. True emotional freedom doesn't come from building thicker armor. It comes from shedding it, It comes from standing in the mirror, not to fix what's wrong, but to recognize what's real. From facing your shadow and saying, "I'm not afraid to see you anymore." From choosing consciousness over control, clarity over chaos, and presence over performance. So now, say it with me, not as a mantra, but as a commitment. I don't need armor. I need awareness. I choose awareness, because awareness is the beginning of everything. When you're aware, you're no longer reacting from unconscious pain. You're responding from conscious truth. You stop being a victim of your past and become the author of your future. And that's not just healing. That's power. Now imagine a world where more people lived this way, where emotional honesty wasn't shameful, where we didn't wear exhaustion as proof of worth, where healing was normal, not hidden, where people weren't trapped in cycles of fear, numbness, and overfunctioning, but awake, integrated, and free. Let's create that world, together. Let's start a movement, not of perfection, but of presence. A movement of people who are done pretending, done performing, done carrying pain that was never meant to be held alone. A movement of people choosing to live from truth instead of fear, from inner peace instead of outer pressure. And it starts here, with you. Every time you pause instead of reacting, every time you listen to yourself instead of the feeling, every time you choose curiosity over judgment, honesty over hiding, integration over avoidance. You are not alone on this journey. You are part of something deeper, something ancient. A quiet revolution is happening not on screens, not in noise, but in the human soul. And this is just the beginning. There's more to uncover, more shadows to meet, more inner truths waiting to rise. Because awakening isn't a destination, it's a continual unfolding, layer by layer, moment by moment. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore how to move from surviving to truly inhabiting your life. We'll talk about what it means to stop performing for love and to start being love, without conditions, without masks. We'll go deeper into the process of letting go, of grieving what never was, and making space for what could be. But for now, pause, breathe. You've already done something many never will. You turned inward and you stayed. You didn't run. You listened. And that changes everything. If this message spoke to something inside you, share it. Leave a comment. Say the words out loud. I choose awareness. Let's fill the world with voices that aren't afraid to feel. Those aren't afraid to heal. Those aren't afraid to live fully, honestly, deeply. This is how we begin. Not by shouting louder, but by listening deeper. Not by becoming someone else, but by finally coming home to ourselves. You don't need to be stronger. You just need to be whole. And you already are. If this message touched something deep within you, don't keep it to yourself. Click like to let the algorithm know that content like this matters. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next step in this journey, because we're only just beginning. The path to awakening isn't walked alone, and there's more to uncover, together. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What part of this message resonated with you the most? What's the one truth you're taking with you today? Let's build a space where awareness is honored, truth is welcomed, and healing is celebrated. Say it with me, one more time. I choose awareness.